All right. I'll give it a second here for everybody to, I just shot a video for the Kings of Golf final standings, and I'm fired up another one. So we'll give everybody a second to get in here. I'll just sit here and sing a song. Wait till the first person gets in the chat, since I don't have any timer to let people know that I'm getting ready to do it. I'm going to shoot I'll shoot a video here. It should take about an hour, and then once I get done with this video, I will go mow the lawn. That's what I'm going to do. All right, let's go through the deal here. So Golf Clash has announced the new Sakura Hills 9-hole cup. What's up, Desmond Chan? Let me get back in the channel here and I can watch the chat. Sing a song of 6. Lee Harvey was a friend of mine. I usually only sing that song out of country because a lot of people don't. A lot of people get the reference, but like in America, you get my mom's generation. Those people love Kennedy, and they knew, they were alive at that time, so they're definitely not into anything about Lee Harvey. They'll pull up on YouTube and pull up the Lee Harvey song. I've gone to a lot of parties and a lot of karaoke places where I go sing that song a cappella. All right, the Sakura Hill. So pen and paper, if you haven't done any research on it already. So if you use Golf Clash Notebook, and I don't know what the deal is with Golf Clash Notebook, for all of you that use the Notebook app and are still have bought that or are buying that, I'm sure that it's still available out there because I know a lot of people are buying it, and I'm not sure if they're upgrading it, but part of the deal with the Notebook app is it has Golf Clash Notebook, and Golf Clash Notebook is a key resource in this community, and they haven't done anything with it in the last 6 months. So it's getting behind where they've got to go back and put in all of these holes and do all of the stuff for it, and it will be a huge loss because I think probably in another 6 months to a year, unless somebody does something with Golf Clash Notebook, it's going to be totally, it'll be occasionally usable, but it'll be out of it. And that's a huge loss of resources within the Golf Clash community. Sakura Hills. So if you go to the Sakura Hills, this is the course layout. Holes 1 through 9 at Golf Clash Notebook. Hole number 1 in the tournament. So in the Sakura Hills 9-hole cup, hole number 1 is Sakura Hills hole number 3. Hole number 2 is Sakura Hills hole number 8. Hole number 3 of the tournament is Sakura Hills hole number 6. Hole number 4 of the tournament is Sakura Hills hole number 1. Hole number 5 is Sakura Hills hole number 2. Hole number 6 is Sakura Hills hole number 9. Hole number 7 is Sakura Hills hole number 5. Hole number 8 is Sakura Hills hole number 7. And hole number 9 is Sakura Hills hole number 4. So if you're using Golf Clash Notebook to kind of get a really good look at the holes and really want to look at some good pictures of them, this is the deal. I haven't heard of any changes. But that's not to say that there isn't some, but I haven't heard of any. All right, so Sakura Hills, hole number 1. I love this hole. In one-on-one play, I like to come at this hole. There's a bunch of different ways that you can come at this hole, and this is, in one-on-one, this is one of my absolute favorite holes to get on in one-on-one. And it's one of the reasons why I like Sakura Hills, because it has some killer holes like this. Is that if you come out here, we'll just go over some different ways that you can play it. So if you lay yourself up out here, and I mean literally lay yourself up, you can start off up in this corner right here. You don't have to bring out a massive ball. You may have to take the shot 1 or 2 times so that you make sure that you know which ball to bring to get in the right part of your Saturn. and you can get out here in Saturn range and you can go right at it and do a dunk, and you can practice your dunks, and it'll either, and depending on where you lay it out there and what ball you bring, will depend on where you're at in your club, and you can dial that shot in. Max backspin. There's a big ass backboard on this green, and so it's all coming downhill. So if you come out here with a Saturn, you can do the backspin. If you don't make the dunk, it'll just backspin right back down towards the cup, and you'll have a short putt and you move on. If you can get yourself out in the short iron range, you can also do the same shot if you really like doing, if you really want to practice dunks, if you really want to do the deal. You can take both of these shots where you come at the green, and you don't have to do a lot to get out into this area. And you don't have to do much more to get a little bit in front so that you could potentially get into your short iron area. Now, if you bring out that's because I love the dunk here. So on one-on-one, I never shoot anything but the dunk. I try and lay myself up out here so that I'm in my long iron range, and I go for a dunk. And I don't really care which long iron I have. You can bring a really accurate one because it only takes a little bit of backspin to come back down that hill. It's so steep. The other way you can do it is you can come out here and you can try and get in front of this area by bringing out a bigger ball. And your ball guide's going to be going off. Let me clear that up. You're trying to get up into this area, and your ball guide's going to be going off like this. And so you're trying to cover this gap. And if you use an extra mile, it's about right where it gets you up into this area. I have hit it one time. And I mean, and you really take the risk, especially for those of you that have an extra mile 9, because we haven't played this hole since we got an extra mile 9. And with an extra mile 8, you can end up in this sand. So with an extra mile 9, your chances are even more that you're going to end up. If you have an apocalypse, you can try this with an apocalypse. The deal with the apocalypse, let me clear that off. Here's the thing with the apocalypse. If you wanted to try and get up towards the green and get on it, so like the closest that I've ever been is like right in here where I came through and it bled through and it just missed that rough and ended up right there and had actually made the gap. You can end up in this area right here a lot where you've got a short little chip. And I'm not so sure if you take the arc from where the cup is and you do the arc, it's a little bit flatter out here, so it might be better to try and stay low and just terminate in this area. It's kind of hard to get through that gap, but it can be done. We've got a much better selection of balls now than we've ever had before, because now we've got 4 side spin balls and we've got access to stuff that we didn't before, where it is possible to get through that gap. But you can get yourself up into this area where you have a short iron, a wedge, or you're on the green. You can work that deal by starting off up in here. And it'll just depend on the clubs you have in your bag, like whether you're going to bring an extra mile or if you've got an apocalypse. With an apocalypse, you could potentially get through this, especially if you could get out here far enough where you could get one bounce there, one bounce here, and you may be able to bounce over some of this and just almost do a third bounce rough pump and just bleed out right in front of the green. This is a very, very, very eagleable hole. Even doing the dunk, I mean, the dunk is a fun shot on this hole. Okay, it is a fun shot, but you can get way in the hell up there and try and get on, and it'll really depend on the clubs you have in your bag and what balls you're willing to, and what balls you have. Hole number 2. That's hole number 1, and I haven't put together a playlist for this. I will go through when I'm done and I'll see if I have any of these holes. These holes, we haven't played these holes in a long time. Like this particular hole right here, we played, the mountain tournament was a long time ago. Sakura Hills was a long time ago. This touchdown tournament was 2018. And the Pacific tournament, the Asia Pacific tournament was a long time ago. Those tournaments are a long time ago. So we haven't played these holes, some of them, in a long time. So hole number 2 is Sakura Hills, hole number 8. And these par 3s that are in here, they've changed the greens on these from the original, how they originally played. And this one has had less changes than one of the other par 3s that are in here. But these are pretty straightforward. If I remember correctly, these are, I think if you pull your red line back, and depending on which ball you bring, if you pull your red line back. You can be long iron, bleeding it up, or wood coming in, if I remember correctly on this one. But they're pretty straightforward, and we want to set up a shot on these types of holes because think about it, this is a Tour 3 course, and so these Tour 3 courses, think about when you were playing Tour 3, like when you first started playing Tour 3, what kind of clubs you had. And so these holes aren't these tricky greens like we get up in the upper tours. They're pretty straightforward. So the less movement you have to put on the ball, the better. And big ball guide really pays off here because your ball guide's usually going to be telling you the truth about, you know, where it's going to end up. It may be a little bit long or a little bit short as far as where you put it to the cup, but these greens read pretty true. This is a great hole-in-one hole. I mean, we're going to have a great opportunity for hole-in-one on this hole. So if we do the minimum score, man, that first hole, we really need to get it is a 1. But we have 2 great opportunities in the first 2 holes to pick up a shot. Hole number 3 is hole number 6. All right, and they changed this hole, and I don't like it nearly as much as it used to be. You can come at this hole in a bunch of different ways. You can bouncing off of this island, you can try and get way up here in the front, and you can get way up in the front. You can either end up more towards the middle. There's kind of like 3 landing areas. So up here you could get in the short iron. Most of this area here is in long iron. It is every bit, for those of you that, especially if you've got lower developed clubs, it's all of your clubs to try and get from the top over. If you got upper developed clubs, it's not as bad, but your chances of getting in are like just get up there. This green is really tough. It is more beneficial to be down here in the bottom. You want to get over to this area, and you can do it with bounces. You don't have to do some big overpower thing on this. I know for a long time I played this. I think I played it with an extra mile and a Kingmaker, and was trying to like max OP, trying to get it over there, trying to get it up into this area up here. And the deal is that this hole can eat your lunch, because if you get caught up anywhere over here, you're sunk, no matter what kind of clubs you have. And so this is one of those holes, I believe the last time we played in a tournament, and I'll have to go back because this is a hole that we've played a few times. Played it in the Easter Open here not too long ago. And that Fuji Open. And this hole right here, I think I was bringing out a bigger ball, or I was just trying to do the bounce over so that I was ending up more in the white. The green here is super, super tricky. It falls off. So you got the green like this with the flagpole right here, and you're coming kind of up a hill, and then there's a bowl around it, and it can, where it's a little flat, and then it falls off. This area over here, if you end up on the right-hand side, especially if you're behind it, if you're on the right-hand side and behind it to make that putt, it's one of those putts where you're here and the cup is right here, and it's not very far away, but in order to get there, you literally got to do this. And you can't see the cup from some of the areas where it's just slightly above you, so you can't tell where your tail, you can see that your tail is engaged in the cup because the cup started glowing, but you can't tell where the tail's coming in. If is it coming in on the edge or is it coming in the middle? And there can be some super tough putts on this, so if you're gonna miss, it's better on the green to be where the cup is right here and you're in front of it, where you came up like this, and you're really kind of working your speed. You want your speed to be where it really just stops at the hole, and it doesn't play. I don't like the way that it plays now. It's much harder to play this hole than it used to be because of how they put that cup on that little mount, and it falls off on every side around it, and you can end up with some difficult putts. This used to be, I would say that in the past, that this par 5 was definitely albiable, and it's still albiable, but it's not as much as it used to be. But we do have an albi shot here, and it's all about putting ourselves up in the right spot. So it really depends on how big of a ball you want to spend. You can bring out a power 3 ball and just do the bounce, diddy bounce, and end up over, and you'll end up right there. So it's very doable, and there is an adjustment here, and I can't remember. It's probably like 10 or 20%. If we're going to do the bounce that he bounce, we really want to make sure that we got our wind dialed in. Hole number 4, Sakura Hills, hole number 1. All right, this is another hole. This par 3 right here, it used to have a serious funnel. You want to talk about, where he talks about holes that have great funnels. This hole right here used to be, back in the day, was the hole-in-one-ablest hole in the game. And they slightly changed it, but it's still very, very hole-in-one-able. And really that black line that's on there is the best way to come at it. It takes very little movement. It's just all about looking at where your second bounce is engaging the green and trying to find that spot. So like pick a spot that's super obvious, and then you can start working your adjustment a little bit, maybe a little teeny bit of side spin or a little teeny bit, and so you can start working that. But pick a spot out there, like the first time you got there, and you do a little bit, like really look at like where your spot is, so that you can start off in exactly the same spot every time, and the only thing you're working is that little teeny bit of side spin or top spin in order to dial it in. And this hole is still extremely hole-in-one-able, very hole-in-one-able. I mean, I think both of the first 2 par 3s are definitely going to be holes that people are going to be picking shots up on. This could be one of those types of tournaments. I mean, the first 5 holes have some pretty serious opportunities. Or the first 4 holes. Hole number 5 is hole number 2. All right, for those of you that have lower developed clubs, I always played this in one-on-one with a Guardian. And the thing I like about a Guardian is it has a little bit more distance than the more accurate big ball guide clubs. But what it does have is it's got tons of backspin and it has some raw distance. And I always like to hit as far into this corner as possible when I'm playing one-on-one. So if you've got lower developed stuff and you're just like doing the thing, trying to get as far in that direction, you do not want to try and get to that spot. You want to just be more in this direction. Your real goal is kind of like right there. And what you're doing here is that your second shot, if you draw a line to the cup, you're engaging this rough right here. And I know from past experience that this rough sand area here, here's the fairway and then here's the rough sand area. I mean, it drops off like serious, and it's actually probably more than that when you're in the sand. That it is a freaking magnet. You want to stay the hell away from that area. When I always talk about setting shots up and I'm 2 rings of separation, if I don't get the right angle here, and let's say I was right here when I'm trying to do this and I give myself 2 rings of separation on that, it pulls me out here and my ball guide's going like this, so I got to cover this angle. So you can cover that angle by using curl and side spin, or you can move it to the right to try and cover that angle, and most people will pinch themselves right up against that rough. I am not a fan of doing that. If I get out here and I can't get it all the way to the cup, then I have to use curl. That tells me that I didn't put the ball in the right spot. I should have been over here, because over here I may not have to use any curl. But always give yourself separation up here, because this hole right here, where this hole kicks people's butts the most, is right here. Now if you get up into this area, whether you're doing the shot coming in like this, or you can try and get down into this area, and there is a rough bump that you can do here. And I'm not, it'll depend on which way the wind's blowing. The thing about rough bumps is if the wind is blowing from the left to the right and you're getting side wind, if you make a bad wind adjustment, it usually doesn't kill you, because when you figure out your arc, you hit a little bit over to the left. As long as you started in the middle of that rough area, even if you slightly overpulled, you're probably going to still end up in the rough just a little to the left or to the right. But if the wind's blowing forward or backwards and you make a bad wind adjustment, it can throw you out of the rough and you hit the fairway, or you overpulled and it'll stick you in the sand. And I'll tell you right now, you do not want to end up in that sand. But there is a rough bump that you can do here. Now there's also, if you bring out a big enough ball and you have a big enough club, there is a shot that you can take, there is a shot that you can take from the tee where you're trying to get out into here and you're trying to bring yourself up through this area, up onto this pad. and it is super narrow. But if you can bring out a big enough ball where you get one bounce right here and one bounce right there, and you're just trying to bridge the gap to end up on here, then you got a pretty serious shot, because you're cutting that angle to the cup so that you don't have to use any curl to get to it, or you don't have to use any backspin. You can come at the hole where you can use that one backspin or one top spin and a little teeny bit of side spin, and you really got a serious shot at it. There is a way to get up on that. I know that in Expert, I've done this shot where you try and get up on this, and if you bring out the right ball and the right club and you hit it absolutely perfect, you can get the bounces right so that it just bounces through this rough area. And sometimes it'll clip and you'll just end up here, and sometimes you'll catch it and you'll end up really nice spot. There may be, depending on the ball that we bring, there may be a way for us to max overpower hook this and get the same result. We'll have to play around on this hole, because I don't think we've played this hole in a long time. I guess we did play it in the Easter Open, and then it had been a long time since we played it before that. But this is a pretty cool hole right here, and not a lot of people are going to end up getting an eagle on this hole. So anything we can do to increase our odds is going to help us tremendously. Hole number 6, Southern Pine or Sakura Hills, hole number 9. If you're playing from the upper divisions, this white line is not a bad way to go. So you can bounce up here behind the trees to give yourself the angle at the cup this way, because from where the tee boxes are in the back, the angle through this gap, you need to do the S, and you're so far back that your first bounce is out here, so that if you could get in front of the S, or pretty close to in front of the S, you could work the S out, but you're far enough back that the S is going to come into play no matter what. So it can be a difficult shot to get in here, whereas this is a pretty straightforward shot, just trying to get your bounces right so you end up out in this area. So it really depends on which ball you bring. But if you're in rookie, we can play this from the front, and it gives us some options that you may not get if you're playing. Well, you might be able to get them in Master or Expert, but you can get out into this area right here in your approach to the green, and you can do. I think the last few times we've played this, I've brought out a quarterback, and if you bring out a power 3 ball, you can get pretty far out there. You can use any driver on this. You can use a big topper if you're really trying to get out there. The deal is it's pretty narrow in here, so if you hit a great to the left or the right with an extra mile or a big topper, it's very easy to find yourself in the trees or in the rough over here, where you end up short or you end up caught up in the rough, and then you're sunk. But if you bring out something more accurate and you hit it 2 rings great to the left or the right, you'd really have to tank it in order to get into those trouble areas. When you're coming at the green, you've got several options. You can you can bounce off of this island and try and bring it over. And there's several different ways that you can do that. You could bounce it over and then try and clip the rough and run it up, or try and get it up there. It's a difficult shot from that side to get it on, and you can't put too much curl on it or you'll end up in trouble. There is a rough bump here though, that if you can get yourself at the right angle down here, there's a rough bump right here. And that rough bump is awesome. Now normally, hold on one second. Sorry about that. talk to a man about a horse. I drank a bunch of coffee before I got on here, so where are we at? The rough bump. So when I like to set this rough bump up, I like to be at the angle. So like when you're trying to find a spot out there for your drive, I like to come at it where I can keep myself a couple rings off of that sand. I don't try and get onto the area that's right in front of the sand where it's really narrow. I try and come at it a little bit more from the right hand side. And I'm not sure as far as like taking a weird bounce, whether it takes a better bounce when you're right here, but I try and stay a little bit away from that sand, and there is an adjustment that we need to make down there, and I'll have to go through the last time we played this to find out what that adjustment is, but there's definitely a slight adjustment that we want to make down here, but the rough bump is really the best way to try and get at it. But your angle from out in this area, wherever you're consistently ending up, I always like to be just a little bit more to the right so that I can use this fatter part of the rough, and it gives me just a little bit more maneuverability. I find that when you get over on this side right here, it can be a little bit tricky. You will see people during the week that will try and do this. And I've seen a ton of people try and do that, and I don't know that I've seen one or two people who were successful, and I've seen a bunch of people that try and do that, and that is there's no shot from over there. I mean, you could lay yourself up out here and try and chip it up, but this isn't really a hole that you want to be coming at from distance unless you're doing that rough bump. So either bounce off the island and then bring it over, or the rough bump. Those are really the best two ways to go at this particular hole. That was hole number, is that hole number 6? Hole number 7, Sakura Hills, hole number 5. I don't even remember what these holes are. All right. Now, there is a rough bump that you can do here, and probably the best opportunity that you have for hole 1 on this hole is to do this rough bump. That's it. I mean, if you're looking to try and maximize your chances of hole 1, the rough bump, in my opinion, is the only way that you can dial it in and really become repeatable. And it's not that you can't repeat the other ways to get onto this green, but as far as like really getting, because they're kind of blind shots. You're having to involve curl, or you're having to involve, and you can't see where it's going to go. Your best chance for hole 1 is off of this rough. So there's shot number 1. Shot number 2 is you can do a rough bump right here. And in one-on-one, that's the only shot that I take. And I do somewhere between a 10 and a 20%. I think I do, because it's been forever and a day since I played this hole. I think it's more towards a 20% wind adjustment when I'm in that spot. And one of the things about using this particular spot is when you're coming at it, your ball guide's going like this. And you put maximum side spin on there, and your ball guide looks like it's going to do this, and it's going to go towards the hole. So you get on this and you think, wow, I don't have to use any curl because my side spin got me to the cup. But for whatever reason, when it hits this spot right here, it goes, okay, and it just takes you out here. The side spin came into play where it started spinning the ball, but the next time the ball hit the ground, it hit in the sand trap. You've got to put your ball guide, the first time you take this shot, just put the side spin on there, and there's a very good chance you're going to get caught up right here. But if you put curl on it, even though it's showing that you don't need to put curl on it, if you put curl on it, it'll just bring it right towards the cup. I always used to take this shot with a Saturn, and so it has lots of curl, it has lots of different stuff on it, and you can start that rough bump up, and you can walk because it's got a lot of topspin, you can walk the ball guide so that it'll look like it's going towards the cup, and then with the full curl, it'll actually bring it up towards the cup, and you'll end up close. I've made an occasional hole-in-one that way, but in one-on-one, it's the way to get up there so that you're close all the time, and it's super, super safe. The other way that you can come at it is you can bounce off of this island. You can bounce off of this island. And you can do the bounce from here, and I'm not a fan of this because we're we're getting farther away from the green and we're putting more stuff into place. And this isn't a flat area. It goes up like this. So you're hitting this area that moves at a pretty steep hill, and you have an opportunity for an irregular bounce that will either it could put you in the sand, or it could blow you off this way. And so I want to get closer to the hole. So if you want to get closer to the hole, bring a guardian. Hey, if you're having any problems at all on this hole, and this hole is eating your lunch, bring a guardian, and you can start off right here in this pocket, and you can backspin, side spin, curl it right to the cup. But if you want hole in one, this way right here off the rough is probably the only legitimate way to get hole in one. It's not that you couldn't work one of these two shots out, but I think like repeatability over and over, this rough bump is the way. I love this hole. And one-on-one, you can win a lot of one-on-ones here with this rough bump right here, because you can do it in almost any kind of wind. Because of where it puts you out in your club, you can pull the wind out in just about any kind of wind, and max curl, max side spin, whatever topspin it takes to get you up there, and you'll be real close all the time. All right, that was hole number, what hole was that? That was hole number 5, that was hole number 7. Hole number 8 is hole number 7 in Sakura Hills. Maybe. All right. There's a ton of different ways to play this hole too. I think the last time that we played this, so all of these holes have had slight changes over the years, and you used to could, and I think the last time we played this in a tournament, I tried it, but you used to be able to bring out a power 5 ball, and you could try and get over here with a max overpower shot, not a max overpower, just a max overpower shot, and try and get yourself to go through this lane and end up on the backside of the green, or end up right here where you have a short chip. But this chip from here, the chip from the front is like this. The fairway's kind of coming up, and you got that sand trap, and then the green is elevated up here, so everything is like coming up to the green. And from over here, and the cup is really short to the front of the green, but from over here you got a little bit more of a run at it, so that you can really kind of set the shot up a little bit better. And there was a shot that you could do over there, but I'm not sure if you can take out a power 5 ball with one of these big ass clubs, an extra mile 9 or an APOC 4 or 5, and see if you couldn't get it over there. I'm not sure if it's possible. Even a big topper, if you had a big topper, I don't think you could get your red line far enough. Sometimes that second bounce with that big topper helps you out on a rough bump. But there may be a shot over here if you wanted to try and get on one. My normal shot on this hole in one-on-one play is I come out here and I lay it up right here. And if I've got the wrong club, I'll pull it back in a sniper and max topspin and just sniper it up. There's 2 holes in the game that I don't have any problem at all bringing out my wood to drive and just laying it up right here in the middle so that I can come straight at it. And there's several ways that you can, but I like to be more in the middle if I'm just doing the one-on-one, and then there's several ways to come at the green. You can try and work yourself around the corner, and there has got to be some risky ass like max overpower hook shot that you could do, where you could either adjust your topspin so that you end up, I'm not sure with all these trees whether or not we could do a max OP hook here. Maybe if you brought out a small enough ball, trying to get up into this area, you could bring yourself around and try and get in front. I think most people are going to end up, what I see, and this is a hole right here, luckily for us, but this is a hole right here, that a lot of people are going to come here with the intention to try and get eagle, and they're going to end up with a par. Because this hole, as simple as it is, and it's one of the reasons why in one-on-one I lay it up. There's a tree right here, this tree right here. I want to be like out in this area right here, so that, actually more like this, so that when I'm coming up towards the green, this tree is just like right there to the right. Because the distance that I'm going, here's the tree and here's where I'm at and here's the cup. The distance where I'm far enough away from this spot that my arc is over the top of the tree. So the tree's not in play. So if you get out there and it spins around and it looks towards the green and you've got half of that tree in your path, that's not a bad spot to be, because you're going to hit over the top of it. So the tree is not in play, but I use it as a marker. And the reason I want to get out in this area here is because a lot of people who come at this green, they're using backspin. And so they're wanting to start off, see if I can get even closer. They're wanting to start off on this tight little hill, and this hill is steep. Like that sand trap goes like up like this, and then you're on the rough. I mean, it's steep to get up to the. So they're trying to use this little teeny area with this being sand. They're trying to use this little teeny steep ass area, and it's so easy to bounce straight up in the air and end up in the sand, or bounce straight up, they hit up at the top, and then it rolls back down into the sand. And so it's super easy to epic fail here. Or they miss forward, they got the wind adjustment, and they actually hit on, and it does all kinds of weird stuff. I don't like to take this shot with backspin. I like to start right off down here at the bottom of this, and it's one bounce, two bounce, and then going to the cup. And you can take that with a Hornet. You can take it with a lot of different clubs from here, where you're not trying to put so much movement on the ball, where you're trying to do the backspin, because this is a hole, that cup is so close to this outside edge. This is a hole that's super easy to epic fail on. And this is also an older green. Now they may have changed the dynamic on the green, but this is one of those older greens that if you end up on the back side over here, it is a long putt. Even if you end up blowing past it and you're over here and you don't make the fringe, that's a long putt from there. You can do the bounce over where people try and get up in here. Well, they're doing the white line where they're trying to get up into this area, and then you're going to be here with short iron, or they're trying to get a lot in the wedge area. I see most people who try and get up into the white spot, epic fail. They end up, I mean, the deal is they can recover, so they end up in the sand or they end up in the rough up here, and they don't end up giving themselves the shot that they were really, really looking for. So if you're taking the white line, think about your bag. Like normally I would always bring a Spitfire, because there isn't much I can't get done with a Spitfire. But on this particular hole, if you end up in the sand way up here in the front, your backspin could be a premium. So bringing a Houdini, I think a Castaway, is that a I can think a Castaway when it gets upper developed has a ton of backspin. Bringing a Machete, bringing a rough iron that's got some backspin, so that if you do end up in the rough down here, you can take basically the same shot that you were going to take from here. I think if you're taking the white line and trying to get up there, it's going to be a backspin club. You're not going to be able to do that finesse with a Hornet like you could if you were down here in the front trying to bounce it up. But if you're trying to get here so that you can take that shot, then try and get up there. But if your whole goal is to just get up here and put yourself in a great spot for a short iron, you do not have to get down here. Okay, you've actually hurt yourself, because now you're at distance. See, when you're here and you're trying to do a backspin club, you're going to be in short iron or wedge. But when you're out here and you're trying to do that backspin, you're going to be in long iron. And we really only have two long irons that have lots of backspin. We've got a Saturn and we've got a Grim Reaper. And I don't mind the Saturn, but you can do the bounce. You cut yourself off. The only option you have is to now hit that at distance and use backspin. But if you lay it up out in this area right here, you could still do the backspin over, or you could still do the backspin on, or you can run it up through the chute here. And so you've got a lot more options. So if you're going to do the white line, do the white line and bring backspin stuff. If you're not going to do the white line, you're probably better off to just lay it up. And you may not have to burn a big ball here. You could bring a low wind ball so that you can really help yourself out on that second shot. Yeah, and you can do a dunk on this hole too. This is a hole that you could do a dunk, but if you miss the shot in the front, you're probably going to roll off the green. I'm just saying. Don't shoot the messenger, man. All right, that was hole number 8. Hole number 9 is hole number 4. I'm kind of hoping that I think the last time that hole was in a tournament, I tried that power 5 shot behind it. I think I might have tried it with a Titan just to see like where I could get, like to see if pulling out a power 5 ball would get me any more distance. But in the practice session, I couldn't get anything but headwind, and I don't know that I was able to actually like really go at it. This hole right here is the first time that this was the Asia Pacific, or the Sakura Hill. So that was like the third tournament. That's 2017. I think that was like the third or fourth tournament that we ever played, right? August Yeah, it was like the fourth tournament we ever played. Fifth tournament we ever played was at Sakura Hills. And when this came out, a berserker, like a power 5 ball on this, because if you bring out, there's some trees out here that aren't represented on this picture. I think there's some trees out in this area and they throw shadows out into the course out here. If you can get yourself, like they talk about the white line, where you're hitting to here and then that white line, you can get down into this area in front of this peninsula right here, where this sand trap is at. If you can get in front of that, then from up here, you can take this shot here, or you can take the black line and try and run it in, and there's a backboard on the screen and you can run it back down to it. But you have several options if you can get in front of that. Now you may be able to, if you get back, let's say up into this area, if you've got a big dog in your bag, something that's got lots of top spin and lots of raw power, you can start off on the top and you can run it along and engage that backboard and move it back down. So getting the eagle here is the critical thing on the drive here is with a Titan, depending on which way the wind's blowing and depending on where your club levels are, you could get on and two with a Titan. But if you bring out a bigger ball, you're definitely going to increase your odds. And if you've got lower developed clubs, you can help out your clubs and give them the same opportunity by bringing out a bigger power ball. But you've got to get a lot on this drive. And this is one of those drives where when I set this drive up, let's see if we can get the tee box in it, because it is way the hell back there. So here's where you want to end up. Okay, you've got to get on the other side of that. So let's say you want to end up in this area. So we draw a line from there to the tee box. And we want to get that area. So that means that to get that area, we're going to have this kind of movement. Right? So you got to have that kind of movement on the ball in order to cover that. So you're going to have to put curl on it. So everything on this shot is moving to the right. And so everything's going to the right. So let's say here's where my starting spot was, and I hit a shot one ring great to the left. Okay, so on the field, that's a couple yards, whatever it happens to be on the field, but I hit out in this direction to the left. But if everything on that shot is going to the right, I've got side spin, I've got curl, I need the ball to go to the right. I want everything to go to the right. So I've got side spin and curl on there. I hit one ring great right here, but guess what? I was still on this arc. And everything's still going to go to the right. I just started off a little bit farther to the left. If I hit a little bit to the right, and then I'm going to cover the inside of that gap. So when I set this shot up, everything's going to go to the right. I want to make sure that I give myself 2 rings of separation off of this fairway, or this rough. And I'm going to do a max overpower shot where I'm trying to, and I'm probably going to use about half curl. So max OP and then about half curl, coming down at about a 45. And I'm going to aim towards this area up here towards the top, because if I hit it one ring great, if I leave myself 2 rings of separation off of this rough, and I hit a 1 ring great to the left, it's going to hit 1 ring away from that rough. But guess what? From that point forward, every single thing on that shot, the side spin, the curl, everything now engaged when it made that bounce, is now pushing me to the right. And so the ball is going to fall over here and just go right through the middle of the fairway. If I hit it perfect, it's going to go that same way. Okay, if you hit it, the worst thing that can happen to you is if you hit like a 3 ring great to the right. Because on a shot like this where you're setting it up that far out, you could hit 2 rings great to the right and still have the opportunity of bleeding out into this area. You may clip the rough. But if you hit a 3 ring great, you're going to end up in this sand trap. So if you set it up like that, you can give yourself 2 rings on the left and 2 rings on the right and a perfect, and it'll still fly its ass down that fairway. And if you've got lower developed clubs, bringing a big dog here, all you need to do here is limp up on the green. This is a hole that a lot of people, if they don't bring the right stuff, are going to suffer on. And it's going to be, this is kind of like the last tournament. This is a tough par 5. It's one of the things about these lower tours And this is like what it used to be like when Golf Clash first came out. There was a lot of holes that were super tough. And even now, with all of the stuff we have, they can still be tough if you don't put yourself in the right spot. All right, that was hole number 9. I like this hole. And the deal is that you do have 2 legitimate ways to get towards the cup. So if you didn't get all the distance that you wanted, if you got all the distance that you want and you're set up to do this rough bump, then, you know, take the rough bump. But if you didn't get all the distance that you want, you can always recover by taking the black line. And if you don't have a big enough club to get you out into the spot out here where you can take this rough bump, then the black line is a very easy way to get up there, get up on the green, and get your eagle and go home. You could power slice this hole, but I don't think the deal with this hole is, Apollo, the thing on this hole, and I love doing max OP hook shots. I mean, the last tournament I did 3 and I didn't have any problems at all on the 3 holes. As far as like the drive, I didn't have any problems. I like, because if you set up a max OP shot, you can put yourself in a spot. But I suppose if you were trying to get way down here towards the bottom to do the white line, that there might be some benefit in it, because you can get here with a power 5 ball and a straight up max OP shot, you can get like in this area. And with the extra mile 9, I'm not sure that you couldn't get just a little bit further. In an APOC 5, you could probably get that same kind of range. If you wanted to get way up in the front up here, I think that's a max OP shot would work. You just have to watch out about that tree, because you probably have to engage it somewhere in this area, so that tree might or might not be a factor. If you're trying the shot going from this direction, I don't know that you'd have to do that at all, because you can really kind of lay it up out into this as long as you're off of this sand. There might be a max OP shot that you can do to get way down in there with a lower, you might be able to bring out a 3 or a 4 power ball and get way the hell down in there and be able to take this awesome shot but not have to burn a power 5 ball. So you might even be able to do it. I'm not sure as far as red line goes where you'd be out there with a Titan. We'll have to see how that works, because typically on this hole they give us some kind of tailwind, so we have some kind of usable wind. So we'll have to see how it rolls. All right, that was the scouting report. We got some good information here on what's going on. What's up, Buster boy? What's up, Buster? Is he gonna come out here and hang out with me? Come on, buddy. All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching the stuff. Hopefully everybody has a great week in the tournament. It'll be fun. These holes are fun. Like I said, we haven't been playing them a lot. So we should have some fun with Sakura Hills. I like Sakura Hills. It was the first course that I went out and tried to find stuff on. So when I went to Tour 3, there was so little in the community. I mean, right now we have so many resources in the community. If you want to know anything, you can probably find out in about a minute. But back then you had to search, and even then you didn't find what you were looking for. And this was the first one that I finally found some and really kind of did some research on before I went and played it. All right, thanks for watching. Let's see what we got here. Infant Cactus, thanks for coming. Rifter, Desmond Chan, Paulo, Michael Durham, Mike D. It was a nice finishing, Jake, buddy. Split finger fastball in the house. You're welcome, Des. You guys have a great